So what we're doing now is just drilling the pilot hole up the middle, and we'll go up in progressive drill sizes until somewhere around 7/8 of an inch, 22 mil, and then I'll bore the last bit out to the 24 millimeters that I'm after. So now we're just boring out the inside diameter. So there's our finished product there. So this shoulder here is for the plate that will hold the inlet manifold on. And we've got an internal shoulder there. So when I cut this stub off a bit, it'll shoulder out and just give me, I want about a 2 mil gap in there to get some bronze in. So yeah, pretty happy with that. It's turned out alright. So what I'm doing now is just milling down the stub. I've already cut it off and I want a 12 mil length. So this is the final cut. It's only 1/4 millimeter cut because as you can see the setup's hanging out a bit, so I don't want to get too much of a vibration up. And that's our inlet stub on our cut down barrel inlet stud with the little gap that I want, that I'll be able to get some bronze into. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now we've got to bore out the inlet tract. So what I'm just doing now, I've got a dial indicator set up around the outside edge of the barrel stub, and I'm just making it concentric to the milling machine. So when I set the boring bar up, it will be perfectly concentric with the outside, which is what I want. But if you have I don't know whether you can see, move the dial indicator out of the way. But the actual original inlet tract is how far off center it is, and it's not even close to being concentric. So what I've got set up there is a dial indicator onto the boring bar, and that's how I'm actually measuring my depth of cut. I actually wind it across and just read it off the dial indicator. You can see there we've already started boring out. We're not far off depth, and I don't think I will go as big a hole, the full 24 mil. I think I might go 23 mil to leave myself a bit more wall thickness here, because I'm a bit worried about when I start bronzing it up, having enough wall thickness so it doesn't crack, even though I'll be welding down into the fins. So I'll just blend that last little 1/2 mil around the circumference out. Yeah, so far so good. So we were aiming for 23 millimeters. And that's what we got. That's how accurate you can actually get with a little boring bar like that, just using the dial indicator to do the adjustments. All right, that's the finished product after boring. So you can see, I'll just shine a light in there for you. It might be easier like that. You can see how far off centre that the original inlet tract is. So what I'll do now is I'll go in and blend all this out into the inlet tract. I've left an extra millimetre on that I'll blend out into the inlet port. Now I've got a tiny little bit of slop there, and there's a very good reason for that, because what I'm aiming for is to try and get, when I bronze it, is trying to get some capillary action up around this surface there and the internal surface in there. So if you've got a too tight a fit, it won't draw up in there. So I'm pretty confident I can do that. So I mean, it's not much, but that's going really well. Time to get on back onto the die grinder. That's how our inlet ended up after a polishing. It might be a bit glary with the light. I'll try and see how we go. That's a bit better. Pretty happy with that. We're on the morning of day 3 of the barrel build, and I've just finished off blending the exhaust port after I bored it out. So I'll bring in a bit closer and we'll show you that. It's our exhaust port. I've just got to hand finish it now. So you can see a few of the sanding marks from the Dremel and everything like that. But yeah, it's come up pretty good. And there's our flange marked out for the carby mount. So cut that off, get it over in the milling machine, drill some holes, and we'll bore it out. So what I'm doing now is just adjusting the tool out for my next cut. We're just roughing it out at this stage, and as you can see also, we've already got the holes drilled, so we'll just keep boring it out until we get the right size except the socket. Dial indicator set up there, and we're just getting ready to take our final cut. So I'll just make the adjustment using the dial indicator, and hopefully all will be well. So there's our plate done. You can see I've extended the lines on the outside, so that gives me a reference to cut it out. I'm just going to cut it out with the 1-inch disc on the grinder. On the reverse, I've deburred the holes. That's weld prep there, cleaned up, ready to go. And as you can see, the socket sort of fits but doesn't, and that's exactly what I want, because that's going to be a press fit. So it holds it together. This will be pressed in. It's got a shoulder there, nice and square, and then that'll hold together while I'm TIG welding it. So we'll get it cut out and we'll get the TIG welder set up. So that's our inlet flange now shaped up, and what I'll do now is I'll press this stub into it. Righto, so I'll start pressing this inlet stub in. And there we have it. Very happy with that. Right, time to set up the TIG welder and lay a TIG weld around that. And there it is, welded up. Not the prettiest TIG welding I've done, but it's fine. Now over into the lathe, and we'll face off the flange face. And that's our flange face now machined. It took about 0.4 of a millimetre to get it flat again, because obviously these two edges out here actually pulled down with the heat of the welding. But that's not as much distortion as I thought was going to happen. Alright, now it's time to start fitting it up and bronzing, but before I do that, it's time to give the barrel a really good scrub in preparation for bronzing this on. So we're getting closer to bronzing this up. So as you can see, we've got the heat gun on it. Just trying to get the chill off the cast iron before I actually hit it with a flame, because it's notorious for cracking. So I'll leave that on for a while. But the problem is, this is designed to dissipate heat, so it's hard to get heat into it. But we'll see how we go. We'll leave that on. So as you just saw, I finished the bronzing job, putting the new inlet stub onto the barrel. It went pretty well. I'm pretty happy. You know, bronzing on the cast iron can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. We'll call it that. So I've actually got that wrapped up in a welding blanket to slow down the cooling rate of it, to try and mitigate getting a crack in it. Generally, sometimes you actually hear cast iron cracking when you're welding it, and I didn't hear that, so I'm pretty happy about that. So obviously I can't manhandle the barrel for an hour or two, so in the meantime I'm going to pull this engine down, and you've seen me pull engines down before, but I've got to pull this engine all the way down so I can match port the transfers on the cases to the barrel, and then I'll have to dress out the transfers on the barrel. So I think you've seen enough of me die grinding and all that sort of stuff, so I think that's about enough for this episode. So next episode will be, hopefully, if this engine runs, and if it doesn't, I'll never make another video again, I'll tell you. So hopefully the next episode will be time trialling both the engines in the race bike. So the reason we're time trialling them is that obviously the one that's the fastest is the one I'll put in the bike to go and race. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thanks once again to all my subscribers, new and old. The channel's growing by the day, and I really appreciate your support and your comments and everything like that. I really do. So from all of us at Oz Bantams, we'll see you later.